Good afternoon, Brackenfell High. Welcome to another episode here of the Brakkie Podcast. Today we have some very special guests. Let's get to know them quickly. We have Aldo Fritz. He's a grade 11 learner. He's just from our student aspect. We have Miss Van Bouillon right here. She is filling in for us as well today, and she's going to ask a lot of lovely questions. And then, of course, our main star for today, the reason why we are actually here today, Courtnall Skosan. Former Springbok rugby player, current Stormer rugby player, hopefully again in the Stormers team very quickly. No? How are you today, Courtnall?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you can come here. Eh? Back to your old school, back to where your roots started.
100%. A lot of memories, yeah. Although the field wasn't in the same place, but a lot of memories. Yeah.
So, as we said, now you're a massive rugby player. You're an icon in the rugby world. But tell us, who is Courtnall Skosan? What can we see that's not on TV?
I think I'm pretty transparent out there. First of all, I'm a child of God. I'm a father, I'm a husband. I'm a child as well to my mother. My mother's the only one alive. So that's the few things that you kind of define me. But I think if I had to give myself like a short description of who I am, I'm a person that cares. I love, very hard. And I'm someone that wants to make a difference as well. So, that's basically my purpose. And if I can do that, then I'll be happy the day that God presses that number and says, listen, it's you now. I think I'll be happy.
I'm so glad with that answer because I think most of the time we just get this very bad perspective of I want to be famous and that's the only reason why I do and this is who I am and so.
Yeah, no, that's not really where I find my identity. I think, as a young man growing up, I wanted to belong. Eventually came into a space that I thought would give me that belonging, but then I found God and that was just where everything started for me. So that's why I have so much substance when it comes to stuff like that.
I love it, man. I love it. So tell us a little bit, why rugby? Why did you fall in love with rugby?
Sure. Rugby comes from my father, actually. So the love for the game started with every Saturday or Sunday. It was a fire, it was a few beers, and, rugby from the morning to the evening. And after every single game that I watched, I would try and mimic all the guys. I would go outside, kick a ball, and try and run like back in the day. It was Brian Abana and all the guys, I'd try and run exactly the way they do. And that's kind of where the love for the game started. But then obviously going into school, I met some good people and then eventually got introduced to the sport, and then learned as I went along the way. And that's where the whole journey started for me.
Yes, I love it. So the reason that you're here is not 100% to talk about rugby. You started your own podcast, Courtnall Skosan Unplugged, sorry. Skosan Unplugged. And why did you decide to start your own podcast?
I think I've always been someone, I can chat, first of all. I love chatting. I love having talks. I sit and have a lot of conversations. I like to hear people's stories. And I think that's the main thing that kind of gravitated me towards, like doing something like this. But it's never been the right time for me to do it, or I felt like it was never the right time. So I had this vision about 6 or 7 years ago and just never really kicked off. I actually went through my phone earlier today and I saw some old videos of me doing some actual episodes, but they never got posted out, so it was never the right time. And then eventually when I wanted to start it up, a lot of stuff happened in my life and I didn't feel like I was ready to be deep and have, unfiltered conversations because I was scared that I was going to break down. So I'm like, okay, cool, I need to work on myself first, get through whatever the storm is in my life, and then eventually when I have, the capacity, I can now sit down with people and have those unfiltered conversations. And, the main thing for me as well is my story can only reach that many people. Whereas if I sit with people, I've met some amazing people in my life. If I sit down with them and allow them to tell their stories, each and everyone can relate to someone else. And that just gets a broader audience, to be able to share that story with and inspire people. And I think that's the main thing for me, is to be able to bring people together, have conversations, and then inspire and impact the next generation so that they can, go out and become the next amazing people. Because I've met some
Pretty amazing people.
Amazing people. Rugby has allowed me a lot of opportunities in life.
So with everything that you said, it's safe to assume that your podcast main view is not just going to be about rugby. It's going to be those deep conversations. It is going to have rugby. Obviously, you are a star in rugby. But it's going to have that deep conversation, that deep things that we want to hear as people as well.
I don't think a lot of people want to always hear the deep things, but it will be something that if you want to hear a success story, hear a bit of substance, like find out what makes people tick. If you want to hear what adversity they faced and how they got through all of that, because we all face things a different way. We all go through challenging times in a different way, and if you want that type of stuff and that type of conversation, you willing to sit down and watch something for about an hour and a half, because it takes a bit of time as well.
It needs to keep your attention.
Yeah. So if that's something that you're interested in, I think this will be, very valuable for that type of people. There's definitely a market for it. And we need to have more real conversations. I feel like a lot of the times when, with the age of social media now, we're only showing the highlights. We're only showing all the good stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, because we need to share positivity and light into the world. But there's also some deep and dark things that we have to go through. And if we're never going to have these conversations, how are we going to be able to break that? And that's what it's all about for me.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so we're going to give over to
Ja, en ek dink ek wil net aansluit by dit. Ek nou daaraan gesit en dink ons is ook in 'n samelewing waar offense is taken. We are so easily offended by what people say, because we struggle to accept the truth. En ek dink dis nodig om te besef dat offense is taken, it's not given, en 'n mens moet soos jou podcast al gebruik om eerlik te kan wees, want let's face it, it wasn't an easy path for you to where you are today, and people don't realize that we all go through a phase or a stage where we are faced with difficulties, and we have to speak about it.
100%.
Want mense dink net, kyk, hulle smile alweer op die foto, hulle is alweer op vakansie daarso, maar ons weet nie wat agter die skerm, what it took for us to get to that photo that is being posted. Daar's baie beklei, mense beklei agter in die agtergrond.
Dit was baie agter die skerms.
Ja, mense vergeet dat dit was 2 minute terug nog 'n klomp dikbek.
100%.
En ons is nie altyd gelukkig nie, al is die foto's gelukkig. So ek dink dis nodig om daai plek te kan hê om te kan praat, en dit is wonderlik dat dit dalk ook iemand is wat vir ons jong kinders 'n rolmodel is wat braaf genoeg is om hierdie eerlike gesprekke te voer. So it's amazing.
It's 'n moeilike ding, en ek dink, baie mense, the word talks about there will always be trials and tribulations, but I've overcome the world, and dis waar die smile vandaan kom. So we can smile because we know we have that in God.
Yes,
He will always come through for us. It's not pretending. It's just, I have joy, but I'm also facing some challenges. And that's the whole thing for me, is let's talk about that part as well. So not just focus on the one thing and pretend and show the world that we're all happy and all of this. We can share the light, but let's address some of the stuff as well. And if you're open and willing to talk about it, let's have a conversation.
So it makes you more relatable to people. En dan besef hulle, dis nie net ek wat deur moeilike goed gaan nie, daar is mense wat vir die Springbokke opgedraf het wat deur baie moeilike goed al gegaan het, en wat waarskynlik tans deur moeilike goed gaan. So dit
is werk om tot by die einde te kom.
Ja, en ons
vergeet dit. Die einde
dit.
is nie net daar nie. Jy moet, en ek bedoel, tog is dit altyd 'n halftyd. Dit is nooit 'n einde nie. Dit is net nog halftyd. Jy het nog altyd iets om te verbeter.
Jy noem nou dat ek nou die dag aan gedink het gesê, yes, halftyd is 'n it's a cool concept to think of. That's actually cool. I like that.
It's only halfway there.
Ja.
So, ek gaan gou oorgaan aan juffrou van Biljon, net om so 'n bietjie 'n paar vinnige vragies weer te
vra. So jy moet nou op jy tone dink, want
ja, laat ons net so 'n bietjie beter meer van hom weet.
Ja, want dis goed wat ek nou die lysie, die vrae deurgewerk het, so ek sê, ek wonder wat ek nogal sal antwoord op die helfte van hierdie outjies. So ja, eerste enetjie, favorite band or song?
J. Cole, Love Yours.
Ooh, favorite food?
Sushi, all day, every day, sushi.
Genade. All right, a drink of choice?
It would be coffee, specifically a white mocha. That's my favorite. Because I love coffee. I love coffee, but the white mocha is a hot chocolate with a shot of coffee inside. So I get best of both worlds.
So
the sweetness
and
the coffee, yes.
En vir die van julle wat nie weet nie, op sy amptelike Stommers webblad, op die Stommers se webblad oor hom, sê hy nogal hy's 'n groot koffiekonnoisseur. So, ons het 'n koffiemaker hier in die toekoms ook wat kom.
En sorry, ek saai trek nou heeltemal, maar jy het vir ons vertel van die plekkie in Wellington waar jy coffee tasting kan doen.
Ja.
Maybe if you haven't done that.
Ek weet nie of jy dit al ooit gedoen het.
I've done a course actually. I want to do my advanced one now. So ek het al die beginners course gedoen. Ek wil nou die advanced een doen.
Alraai, die dog ek expansion met my coffee tasting nee.
Met my ou koffiemasjienkie, jy weet so.
Nee, wat ek het 'n kursus gedoen. First team you played for after school.
That was Durbell.
Okay. Favorite quote?
It's actually my own one, and it says, no matter how hard life is or how well you're doing in life, don't forget to always look up. So there's net 'n reminder vir my om te weet waar my krag vandaan kom.
That's beautiful. What job would you have done if you didn't play rugby?
So IT love. I loved IT when I was on school and then after school as well. So I probably would have finished, and I was literally gonna do that when I moved to the Lions. My condition was, it's either I play the next 2 years and I make it in Super Rugby or on a higher level, or I just finish my studies, go back and eventually start up my own IT, like web development or some tech company. I would have started something in that space.
Sure, dis interessant. All right, describe your character in one sentence.
Loving, fun, energetic, caring, and deep person. I think that's probably the best way to.
Yes, there's a full sin. There's a long sin.
Klomp kommas.
Role models.
Role models. I've had a lot of role models. I can name them, or we'll probably discuss some of them as we go. But my mother and father probably number one on the list.
Oh. Mentors.
Mentors, same thing. I've had a lot of them. And I think as we go, we'll probably touch on some of them as well. But then same thing as well. My mother, prayer warrior. She's always like, being the one that her whole thing was whenever there's tough times, you pray, And my father was very stoic. So you never know what he was going through. So he always had it all together, So I think that was good examples for me to look at growing up. I think they would be top of my list, but I've had my father-in-law. I've had amazing coaches along my journey as well. I've had pastors still now journeying with me as well, I love the fact of having people that can have authority and that you'll be able to tap into to learn, and just better yourself. I love the whole thing of accountability as well, and having that responsibility to be openly speaking to someone and saying, listen, unfiltered, this is where I am. How can I make better decisions? How can I become better? Because as we go through life, you tap into different levels. You need different skills. You need to, be in a better space mentally as well. And there's some stuff I've never faced or gone through that someone has gone through before me. So you can always learn.
Sure, sterk antwoord.
I think you must have went into philosophy or something. Yes.
Ja, motivational speaking.
Yes, ek sê jou, as rugby ewe skielik moet stop,
Sure.
motivational speaker. Vergeet
Ja.
van die koffiebesigheid.
You guys said it.
Ja, nee, ek is omdat ek het nou al vergeet waantoe ons op pad is met daai. Alright, Super Rugby or URC Cup?
I think there's a space for both, but I really enjoyed Super Rugby, but there's a space for both.
Okay. Attack or defense on the field?
I always attack.
Why?
I just enjoy, especially scoring tries.
Okay,
It's like a
Hy
striker.
speel
It's like a
veel.
striker playing soccer. He wants to score goals.
Ja,
It's
ja,
like-
almal wil score.
Wat wil jy?
Yeah.
Become famous with your podcast or play rugby overseas?
So I've never wanted to be famous. I've enjoyed my time overseas, but I mean, if I could play rugby forever, I think if my body allowed me, I'll play till I'm 50. And I'm 33 years old and I still feel young. So yeah, I think I'll take the rugby, but maybe in the country.
Nee, kyk, jy het nou omtrent 'n klomp sterk antwoorde vir ons gegee. Maar ek dink ons gaan nou oorgaan terug na meneer Van Sail toe en dan gaan ons nou 'n klomp verdere vrae vir jou gee want ons moet nou diep tel want ek voel hier's baie wat vertel moet word en
Ons het
gehoor
nog baie
moet word.
lang gesprek
Oh
wat
my goodness,
voor lê.
ek is very excited.
So, terwyl ons nou terug is, so obviously this is your old school, your alma mater. What was the first memories when you walked into Brackenfell?
Sure. Yeah, the first stuff you think about is all the stuff you did break time. So we had like a little group of guys that got together. Like the tuck shop was where we're sitting now was right in that corner. I don't know if it's still there, but there was like a little corner and we sat on the corner every break time. We would play games, do whatever, make jokes and fun of each other or whatever the case may be. But we called ourselves the Corner Boys, which is weird. It's not a gang. It's not a gang. It wasn't a gang. Trust me, guys. It wasn't a gang. But we just called ourselves the Corner Boys, and those are some of the memories. Like playing touchies at break time. Going on the field and playing soccer. I bumped into one of the guys the other day. He's a lawyer now. He came to me and he's like, "Remember the times when we played, football, break time, and all of that? Like we didn't have soccer on the school, so that was the only time you could play soccer. So those are some of the fun memories. Like obviously I was a naughty boy as well. I got into trouble a lot. So there's some teachers that would remember me as a difficult child, when I was in school.
We prefer not to use the term difficult, meneer.
Okay.
We're not allowed to say that.
So I was still figuring myself out. Let me say
Ek hou
that,
van dit. Ek hou
so
van dit.
I was still figuring myself out. A lot of figuring out to do, but yeah, I have some
You were
fun
testing
memories.
the boundaries.
Yes, of
An
course.
active tester,
Of
verstaan
course.
jy?
I was very active in that.
So you did actually answer my second question. I was going to ask what type of learner were you, but now we hear you were a little bit of a naughty boy.
Naughty, yes. push the limits, but I was a good student. Let me say it like that. I mean, my mother's condition was that I had to have good marks. They put me in the school because they wanted, for me to have opportunities. So I never took that for granted. The only thing was I was just, like I said, trying to figure myself out. And the whole wanting to belong thing, I became the class clown. I was bigger than some of the boys playing rugby, you being rough, and you feel like you can fight a little bit here and there and all of that kind of stuff.
Somewhat of a chameleon, some would say.
Yeah, sometimes, like sometimes it depends. It's like a flow, mood type of thing that goes on. So, that's the type of person, but I was a really good student. Like it was easy to teach me because I'm very teachable and I love learning. So that was the one thing, but I got bored quite quickly as well because I couldn't sit still. I couldn't be in a class and just if I was done with my work, I had to do something else. So, and I see a little bit of that in my son now. So, like I know exactly where he's at.
What your parents went through.
I know exactly where he's at.
So he's probably going to test you.
Definitely testing me.
Maybe already. So ek dink elke kind as hulle by die skool uitstap, dan kan hulle sonder enige twyfel sê ek het 'n gunsteling onderwyser gehad because this teacher probably imparted something in your life. Maybe was there when you needed him or her the most. But if you can tell us who was your favorite teacher while you at Brackenfell, and is this teacher most probably maybe nog by die skool?
I don't think he's here anymore. I don't want to single him out, but I think when it comes to fun times and always, being enjoyable or, there was always fun around him when he was a rugby coach as well was Mr. Bernardi. Enjoyed him a lot. He always had a sense of humor. I think he understood me as well. I think that was the funny thing as well. And then the other guy would be our coach as well. He wasn't a teacher here, but Jan Loopser. He was the first team coach the years that I played first team. And for some or other reason, it's like probably he worked with someone similar to me before because he knew exactly how to work with me. And he gave me a lot of stuff. And it was some of the first conversations where I actually felt like, okay, rugby could maybe become something.
And you were heard and seen probably for the first time.
And I think that was quite special. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now. But it was special for me to have that type of conversations and those type of people, that you could bump into.
That one person just giving you that boost just
it takes one teacher,
makes you think
one
I'm
coach.
special enough to do actually.
Look, there was a few of them. Meneer Miller, like we would have, like I said, I was figuring myself out. Let me just get back to that. So while I was figuring myself out, I was in the office a lot, the principal's office, with Mr. Pretorius, guys, we've had a lot of conversations. Now, he was a big Lion. I don't know if you guys know this. He was a massive Lion fan, and he always said, no, maybe one day you can go and play for the Lions. Like, probably when I played for the Lions, he was probably like, okay, I spoke this into existence. But we had so many conversations, but some of the conversations we had was, listen, you've got a lot of potential. You show good leadership qualities. The only thing that might hold you back one day is your attitude towards life, or people. Like just your attitude. That's the only thing. If you can adjust and figure that out, and those are the type of conversations that kind of played over and over and over in my head. And then Jan Loopser, same thing, had a conversation with me, say, listen, I did something on the field and he was very unhappy about it. Got a yellow card for it, foul play and everything. And he told me, he called my father and myself in the next Monday, sat with me. I was the captain of the first team and everything. And he's like, listen, if you ever do that again on the field, you'll never play for me again. And I'm like, I thought being good at rugby was all I needed. But there was a lot more that I had to develop inside me to be able to, achieve in life. And those type of conversations, like I said now, that impacted me. And that's why they became like my favorite people, because those are memories I have of conversations. And it could have been one or two or three that actually impacted me.
And they were probably willing to have those hard conversations with you, not just beklei die altyd, geef jou dit 'n punte en al daai goedjies sê. They were willing to have a truthful, honest conversation, and that's probably where you are now in your life, because a coach or a teacher imparted hard, serious conversations with you, and now you can go back to that and you can now have serious and truthful conversations with other people and have the same impact on them again. So there's no
En dis ook goed, want ek bedoel tog, rugby spelers, you must be a good human being. Ek weet, dis iets wat ons nou instil het hierso by ons rugby seuns nou is, you can't be a good rugby player if you're not a decent human being.
100%.
Want dit is, jy kan nie net maak soos wat jy wil nie. Dit moet van 'n punt af kom.
There's consequences for what you do. I mean, it's not just the yellow card. you are a leader on the field. Ons vergeet baie kere dat dit is die klein graad 8 seuns wat kyk wat die eerste span seuns doen
100%.
en die oomblik wat hulle iets verkeerd doen. Okay, miskien kan ek dit ook doen. Okay, hy het nou die besluit gemaak en hy het daarmee weggekom. Ek kan dit ook doen and we forget that you are an ambassador. Jy maak 'n verskil daar waar jy op die veld is. Dis nogal ons vergeet dit partykeer. So ja, vertel ons 'n bietjie van jou rugby dae terwyl jy in hoërskool was. Ek weet jy het nou 'n bietjie daaroor gepraat met jou afrigter en alles, maar wat het rugby vir jou op skoolvlak beteken?
Sure, like I said, obviously I found a lot of my identity in rugby because I knew I was blessed with the ability to play the game. But I remember one of the first few days I came and the rugby season started, and I was staring like this, and it was just guys in front of me, all big guys, and I'm like, whoa. So I played center when I was in primary school. When I got here and the coach asked me what position you play, I said fullback. I'm like, put me right at the back.
Far away from danger.
I can't be tackled, you know, like all of that. And I think that's probably why I became fast, because I was like, I don't want to get tackled. But, you know, like that's some of the memories that I had coming in here. But some of the, you know, the nicest people that I've ever met. I mean, I bumped into Reinhard Volsking the other day, and he was our scrum half, and you know, still the same guy, lot of energy, gave me a big hug. He's like, I'm so happy to see you. And, you know, that's the type of stuff that you get from playing a game like this. Like, you know, it's just the friendships you have, the people you meet. And even though you don't see each other and you don't become friends that visit each other's houses, you know, like that's some of the stuff that I take with me with the game. But I've had some amazing games on these fields out here, you know, some amazing moments, not just the tries, you know, like victories and, you know, like just special memories of playing this game.
So as ek nou die vraag, ek het nou heel van skrip af meneer van sy, maar wat is die een victory in jou hoërskoolloopbaan wat jy vir altyd en altyd, daai oomblik, as jy nou weer terug gaan dink aan dit, dan ervaar jy daai adrenalien, jy ervaar daai oomblik, daai hoendervleis mooi oomblik. Wat is daai een oomblik in jou hoërskoolloopbaan that was just, it's above everything else that you experienced in your rugby time?
It's difficult for me to think of that, because the only thing I think of, like, was a big moment for me, because it changed a lot in what I did, was when we played the Kalen that side, and I think it was under 16, and I broke my collarbone. So I never gymmed before that, and that's when I actually started taking up gymming and understanding what it is to develop your muscles and kind of like make yourself strong so that you don't get injured, you know. So I think there were so many games that we had that we, you know, had amazing victories. It's difficult for me to single out one of them.
A specific one. Alright. Ek dink nou is die vloer weer terug.
Na my toe.
Ja.
Gooi hom weer terug na my kant toe. So I just want to hear now quickly, we are doing this now on the Brackenfell Podcast. We started our podcast basically in the same time that you started yours.
Yes.
So let's say we can reverse time and you were back at Brackenfell High now, a student here.
Yep.
Do you think you will actually try out to be part of the podcast, or do you feel that sport will be your only main focus?
Well, first of all, this is a lot of work. Well done. Well done. It's a lot of work.
Dis 'n amazing span, meneer, van ons daag net op.
Sure, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Like with my stuff, I'm doing a lot of the work myself, so I do understand a lot of the work that goes into it. But I think when I was back on school, I was way too shy. I was the guy that if we had prepared speech, the paper will be shaking in my hand like this, you know, and I would ask the teacher, can I come back break time? You know, like, or can I come back after school and do it for you one-on-one instead of doing it in front of the whole class? So I was always that type of guy. So I think I would have been way too scared for me to be able to even come close to something like this. But if I knew what I know now, back then,
Probably.
I would definitely be, I would be first in line. Like, you know, like I would be
The motivational
trying to
speaker.
be in this seat.
Ek sê weer the motivational speaker, verstaan jy? And also, it probably would have taken the right teacher at that time to say, luister, ek dink jy moet bietjie kom praat, want ek dink ons het dit met 'n paar van die kandidaate gedoen wat ons gesê het, we think you need to do this. So ja, ek dink dit moes dalk net die regte persoon gevat het.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just think you guys underestimate the effect and the power it has when you have those conversations.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like you're talking into a wall, but
Uiteindelik gaan jy deurbreek.
eventually, like I was a wall, you know, like because they didn't think it had an effect.
Ja.
But when I left school, those were the conversations I had that kind of, I didn't listen to it immediately. And it's the same thing. My wife would tell me, Courtnall, you need to do, I'm like, yeah.
Uiteindelik.
I'm right first and then I'm wrong. And then I figured out on my own. Sometimes we just build up this pride And it's not
in the
the
moment.
worst thing because it allows you to reflect and also go back. But like you eventually get there. So I think you guys underestimate sometimes when you have these conversations what type of effect it could have.
Ja, want jy voel jy praat teen 'n muur. Soos wat jy self
100%.
gesê het, want jy sien die muur, you see the wall going up and as jy net soos ag alweer.
100%.
So now that we heard what you did in school and how you were at school and everything, let's go into a little bit of your playing history. After school, how did you get that opportunity to play for your first provincial team? What happened? Was it directly after school? Did you have to work a little bit harder for that? Tell us.
It was a lot of hard work, but to make a long story short, I bumped into a mate of mine after school. We lost connection. He was in the same primary school. We lost connection for about 5 years because we went to different high schools. Bumped into him at the gym. It was still Zone Fitness across the road here where the Woolies is now. It was Zone Fitness. We bumped into each other there and started training together. And he told me, listen, where are you going to play next season? All of that. I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to Northlink. I'm going to study. I'll see. There's a few clubs that has been asking me, like local clubs, Hands and Hearts, and, all the clubs around the house. And he's like, no, he's at Durbell. I can, join him for a session, see if I enjoy it. I can drive with him as well because I never lived to go all the way that side. Started playing at Durbell, and that's where I met another coach that also told me, like, dude, you shouldn't be here. Like, I don't know why no one spotted you before, but I'll
This
do
is not
everything
the
in my
venue for you.
power to make sure that you play at a club or something bigger, like a province or something, because you're not supposed to be here. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, every single year going to Craven Week trials, I played up until the last trial and just never got that final call. And I would say, this is my year. This is my year. Every single year. And it just didn't happen. So when someone would tell me something like that, I'm like,
It's just dude,
I've had this dream, like I sat with my parents and they're like, listen, you need to go and study. You need to figure out your life. You've been telling us about this rugby dream your whole life. You're turning 19 this year. You got to figure yourself out. So having that conversation, yes, I had a bit of belief, but then things just started working, like just falling into place. And then eventually one of the coaches that came, he coached Tunisia Sevens, I think, and then he came over to come and help our coaches because he had the coach that I was working with had some good relationships with some people. So he had some connections in the rugby space. And that guy came and he's like, listen, I'll see if I can get him into some opportunity or whatever the case may be. And then the one weekend we played, I think it was against Falls Bay or some team. And I just had a storm of a game. Everything I touched just either it created a try or I scored. I scored 6 tries that weekend. And I didn't know Chester Williams was standing next to the field. He was watching.
Wow.
So he had then he was a coach of a Sevens invitational team that was 6 guys from South Africa and 6 guys from England. And he said he wanted a young kid that needed some exposure. He wanted to select the guy, So he went around to a lot of clubs, and that was one of the clubs he came to that weekend when I scored the 6 tries. So he's like, listen. He phoned the Monday and he's like, I want to take him with me. It's my first time getting into a plane. First flight ever. Yes. And it's an international one. So now I'm flying Cape Town to Joburg to Kenya. The tournament was in Kenya. Now for me, that was international.
It is international.
It's a different country. I counted it. It wasn't overseas.
But you went over this year.
Yes. So it was my first international flight. Went and played the Sevens tournament. I didn't know it would be broadcasted on TV. It was broadcasted second day. I scored a few tries in that tournament as well. Did well. Our team wasn't that good because we didn't have a lot of time to work together. And, the English, South Africans, you know the connection, it was a little bit difficult. But we figured it out eventually, and we played some good games on the second day when it was broadcasted. And when I came back, I remembered like yesterday. He phoned me, said, listen, I've got some good news, but I need to meet you and your father. Came straight from the airport, went to McDonald's Tiger Valley, same one that's still there. Went to McDonald's Tiger Valley, sat around the table, and he's like, listen, I got a phone call from the Bulls. They want to give you an opportunity to come for a trial. Mind you, that time I was still playing under 19 trials for Western Province at the time. But now, same thing. Every year it's like this and that. I said, okay, cool. Let's see how it works out. I want to go play the final trial and see if I get selected. Because then it's easy. I stay in Cape Town. I still live my dream. I don't have to go all the way up to Pretoria. Played the final trial. The squad was announced. Again, Courtnall's name is not on the list. Like you're making my decision early, easy, And the coach that had come and help, he said, listen, they're making your decision easy. Take the opportunity. You never know what could come of it. Backed my one bag. I think it was the 9th or the 10th it was the 4th or the 10th of June. I'm mixing up the dates now, but it was June 2010. packed my bags. My father blessed me, said, listen, I'll give up all the study fees that I paid for you for the whole year. You've always wanted to do this. We want to bless you, and the rest is history. And that's how it all started.
So you also moved abroad for a bit, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. So what's the differences between South Africa and waar was jy in die buiteland gewees?
So I went to Northampton. Northampton Saints, amazing team. It's like, the way to explain it is like the Bloemfontein of England. So it's a small town right in the middle of the country, you know, but they are rugby mad. Like, it was an amazing place to be. Like, when I was at the Lions, you know, I enjoyed my career there. I had a lot of success, you know, I became a Springbok, and I was obviously very grateful for the opportunity to go there, but I needed a change in my career. And I spoke to my agent in 2019 already. I was supposed to go to France, but it wasn't God's plan. I got an injury, literally the last game of Super Rugby. Tore my MCL, and I was out for 3 months, couldn't go to France, and that would have been me going to France while my wife was pregnant with our second one. Long story short, we had to be in the country, and, you know, everything. We just saw how God's plan worked out. And 2021, when I had the opportunity, went there. They made it so amazing for us. You know, they literally welcomed us in with open arms. My first game I played, I scored a hat-trick, which was the perfect way to start your journey at a new place. Immediately, the crowd fell in love, you know, and I fell in love with the place as well. The guys made it really special. It wasn't like I ran through the whole team. They made it special for me, you know, giving me ball, giving me opportunities to, you know, to just do what I love to do. And, you know, I think that was probably the best move for me to make at that time, because I needed to find my hunger and my love for the game again, because everything was kind of monotonous. It wasn't that I became complacent. It was just the same thing. Get in my car, drive 50 kilometers, get to training, 6:30, 7:30 in the morning, do my treatments, do my session, do my gym. It was just the same thing over and over. And I was there for so long that I needed something different to challenge myself as well. It was just after COVID. We had no crowds in the stadiums. You know, it felt like a training session when you're playing an official game, you know, and it was the same opposition every other week because we didn't have an international competition. So I was like, I need to test myself against the best because that's why I play this game. And it was the best move for me to make. And, you know, I'm really grateful for the opportunity and what I had there coming back now. You know, I've just learned so many lessons, not just rugby, but the way my wife and I communicate, because you're alone. You have to figure yourself out. There's no, we fight and we need to figure it out. Because listen, we only have us. We getting to meet new people, but you also can't just open up to anyone. So we need to figure it out. And the way we communicate, our kids, how they build relationships and learn, because the schooling that side is totally different. My son was 4 years old and the maths he was doing at 4, you're only supposed to be doing when you're 7. So, you know, it put him a step ahead because they start year 1 when they're 5. So they go a year earlier when they go to school. So not the year that you turn 7, it's a little bit earlier. So he was supposed to go to grade 2 now, but we decided because we're back in the country, we'll put him in grade 1. You know, even if he does well, it's okay. We'll let him do the natural way. But there was a lot of benefits, a lot of blessings in that,
So sal jy, ek dink die beter vraag is om te vra, Engelse kos of Suid-Afrikaanse braaivleis?
Nee. Wel kyk, die vleis, hulle
Watter een is nou beter?
Alles is grass-fed, is different. So my braai was heeltemal different. And obviously het ek gebraai. It was very different.
Maar jy met charcoal gebraai?
I'm big on braai. Like charcoal of hout, nakkie. Like, I'm actually a gas braai guy. Like, ek is actually a gas braai ou. But, like, ek like die klomp stories en vuur maak en al die goed. Ek wil my goed op die braai sit en het moet klaar kom. Ek wil eet. But the meat here obviously very different. I don't know what we do with our meat, but South African meat is just tasty. It's very tasty.
It's beter. It's the spice. It's the spice.
Baie lekker.
It's all wat het kan wees.
Sien al doen is ook 'n groot vleiseter. Jy geniet hom, nee. Ja. So sê vir my, jy het nou genoem, jy het opgegaan, nog Gauteng toe, vir jou eerste rugby nou. Seker 'n groot culture shock geweest toe jy daar aankom?
Sure, I remember, dis die eerste dag toe ek inloop. Dan loop ek in en ek kyk die parking lot en ek dog toe, wie bly by die huis? En it's GTI, it's Golf 6 and it's 125i is convertible and I'm like, whoa, like waar is ek nou? Meanwhile, as die spelers wat saam speel. We first year out of school, And these guys are driving cars that executives are supposed to be having. And I was like, what? Where am I now? Like, I'm here with my one toksakkie. So, and ek is okay. Ek is hier om my droom te, I'm here for my dream. Die ouens leef klaar die droom, like, and they're 19 years old or 18 years old. So for me, that was a massive, like, oh my goodness. Like, and for me, going to a place like Pretoria as well, obviously culture is very different in Pretoria. Like,
Absolutely.
It's very Afrikaner, community, that side, So it was totally different. But the funny thing is, I met my wife there, English girl in Pretoria. Like, she went to Hendrik Vervoort.
Nogals.
School. Like, I mean, maar sy is Engels, So, I mean, God just has a way of doing things. And even going to the Bulls, I mean, growing up as a Western Province person or a VP of a Kaapse kind, you hate the Bulls. It's just
Ons nie lelik wees met die bulle nie. Ons is Bloubil wêreld. Ek kom van daar af. Ons moet bang mooi wees.
Ons is lelikie, but growing up jy word geleer, dis die enemy.
Ja. Soos wat ons geleer is dat julle is, verstaan jy?
And now the enemy is giving me the opportunity to realize my dream. En ek kom aan en ek dink is net vir rugby en ek ontmoet die Here. Like, and it's like, you're like,
divine intervention at its best.
Like, ek moet nou 2000 kilos weg van die huis af gaan om my journey met die Here te begin loop, of my pad met die Here te begin loop, en het was in 'n homesel gewees een aand. Die pastoor het elke week kom klop, hoor ek kom homesel toe, I'm a very stubborn guy. You kan nie net vir my convince, I need to understand everything and figure it out and all of that kind of stuff, and then I'll be able to take those steps. But the one night I said, let me just go and see, whatever, like what's the worst that can happen. Gaan en hulle doen worship en hulle begin bid en goed en alles, and I physically felt a touch on my shoulder, en ek kyk om, niemand agter my nie, and I'm like, whoa.
Wat is dit?
Like, maybe that's what I needed for me to understand that God is real. And, it's hard to explain. I always say this. People might think, oh, yeah, you're super spiritual. It's not that. It's just when you have an encounter with God, only you can explain and understand that because you've gone through it. And that was my moment geweest met die Here waar ek net gesê het, okay, right, I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready. And ek my hart vir die Here gegee, and it was the best decision I ever made. I backslid a little bit after that, and I recommitted myself in 2011 in August. There's a lot of stuff that happened because I was quickly up and then started declining quickly as well. Like I said, this whole figuring myself out was still a big part of my life at that time. But toe my hart vir die Here gegee, die eerste persoon wat ek gebel het was my ma. Soos, Mami, my hart vir die Here gegee, wat doen ek nou? Soos ek is excited. En Matthew, Mark, Luke en John sê vir my, lees net die 4 boeke eerste en dan kan jy daarvan af nou aangaan. Ek het die Bybel stukkend gelees. It was for me, I was so excited because finally I've found like there's something bigger than just me.
And there's a bigger joy. There's a bigger joy.
100%.
Yeah.
So that was, me going from Cape Town all the way to Pretoria wasn't just rugby. It was like God was like, okay, I want this for you, but there's a bigger purpose. Ek soek vir jou ook. Ek soek nie net jou rugby en jou gift en jou alles hier. Ek wil jou gift gebruik. And that was for me, it's obviously like, that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm here. That's why I've been allowed to do all the stuff I've done in my career. It's just the grace.
It just shows you what plan he had for you, no?
Yeah.
I mean, you said now earlier you didn't play Craven Week. Like you said, most of the people that plays rugby professionally directly after school has this course because they're already seen at 16. They already get a salary at 16, basically. And you still had to work for that. And I mean, like you said now specifically, Chester Williams, what's the chance of a Springbok rugby player, an icon for South Africa, the Springboks?
Wat per ongeluk by jou wedstryd opgedaag het.
Just shows you that God already had that plan for you. And you had to go to Pretoria to find, not rugby, but to find yourself through that.
100%.
Yes, 100%. Dis baie keer amazing, soos om sulke testimonies net te hoor.
Ons kan dit explain nie.
Dis onbeskryflik, soos jy sê. Dis absolutely.
100%.
So, nou moet ek vra gehou. Jy het nou jou eie podcast, ons nou nog steeds in jou geskiedenis en alles.
Yes.
Jy het nou nog jou eie podcast. As jy nou soos byvoorbeeld vir Brakkies van vandag, soos jy het mos nou gesê, if you knew back then what you know now, you would try out. So, let's say there is this one shy kid that wants to try out. What would your advice be? Go for it? What would you say?
That wants to try out the podcast.
For the podcast.
I think find out where you can help. I think, that's the biggest thing is there's a lot of stuff to do when it comes to this, but I think the fear of being ridiculed, I think that's a big thing. The low self-esteem, that's a big thing. I mean, I'm standing here now. People might say, oh, you're so confident. All of that. I was nervous just now. You saw what I was looking like before. Yeah, I was reading all the names and stuff. I'm nervous. I still get nervous before, but it's like when I start talking, it's like there's something that just happens. You know,
There's
like
a shift that
and you
takes
just
place.
don't know. Like sometimes you have a gift, but you feel like I don't feel like I'm enough, or I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I don't feel like I'll be able to. But just if you put yourself in that space, in that environment, you learn, you figure it out. You get those ideas and you're like, guys, you know, why don't we do this? You could be an amazing director. You could be a producer. You could be someone sound. There's so many aspects of this that you could get involved in, you know, like whether it's setting up and, you know, packing up stuff afterwards. Like there's so many things that you can do where you can serve and get so much joy out of it. Yeah. I would say give it a go. Just give it a go. You never know what you could be able to do, you know, like I think that's what it's all about.
Ek love it. Ek love it.
Ja.
So, Aldo, jy sit nou nog heel die jy nou nog nie veel
Doodstil.
Doodstil, luister aandagtig hierso. So, we got Aldo, he's a rugby player at school, and he's also actually one of the podcasters. He made the podcast officially. So he's going to be a dual medium now. So we got him in just to ask you from a learner's perspective a little few questions about yourself.
Nice.
So I'm not gonna lie, when they called me and they said you have to ask this big rugby star and icon, you have to ask him a few questions. I was stressing, I was getting home, I was like, okay, got my questions and I have to call my mom. Does this sound professional enough? Because you know, like, so yeah, I just want to ask, so you have played rugby, the sport, at a few different levels, from school year to international. And I'm sure that comes with, I think, a lot of stress sometimes. And I think there's a lot of sports kids or even academic kids who struggle with stress. And I just want to ask, how did you cope with the stress?
I think for me, I think let's go to the identity part as well. Like if you find your identity in what you do, it becomes difficult when you're stressed. But if you have a source of peace and joy, you know, like it becomes a little bit easier to deal with that. So like I said before, I'm a child of God. So that's where I find my peace. That's where I find my rest. I know I'm blessed with the gift to play rugby. You know, like I've done this thing for 15 years, but plus all the years on school. So let's call it, I'm 33 years old now. So let's say since 8 years old, I've been doing this for 25 years. Maybe you've done this for the last 3 years or whatever it may be, you know. But if you find your peace and your joy in something that's bigger than yourself, your purpose, I think that's the main thing. Figure your purpose out. It becomes a lot easier for you to deal with the stresses, because the stress is always going to come. I mean, think about this for a second, right? When I played under 19, we've got about 500 people in the stand, shouting and cheering. Go, I can hear my mother, go Buddha, go Buddha. That's what it is. Fast forward a few years after that, 6 years into my career, 7 years into my career, I'm playing in front of 65,000 people. Ellis Park, packed out, making my Springbok, I think it was my second or third test. You know, we literally like that's, so now imagine, so you got stress at a 500 crowd and you've got stress at the 65,000 crowd. But if my identity is in proving a point to them or showing them I'm good enough to be there, the stress will become too much, because if I make a mistake, I'm broken. But if I have the joy and the peace and I understand that, listen, this is what I'm built for. This is what I've always wanted to do. God is allowing me this opportunity to live my dream. Then it becomes easy, you know. So I think it doesn't matter what you do or what level you're at. Your purpose is your main thing. Your identity is your main thing, you know. And then from there, everything else just flows. And I think that's the best way to look at it. So like I said, I had a lot of figuring out to do. God allowed me that at an early stage in my life, you know. At 19, He let me start figuring myself out properly. But I made a lot of mistakes before then. And hopefully, you know, if you're listening to this, you don't have to make a lot of mistakes, and maybe detrimental mistakes, you know, like for you to, on your journey to figuring yourself out. Find your purpose early. Yeah. The earlier you do it, the better. I wish I met the Lord, or I understood my purpose at least when I was 14, 15, 16. Would have been an easier journey for me going through school, but it was at the right time for me, and now I am where I am because of that.
I need to start making notes here. I'm not going to lie. And then, so motivation plays a big part, especially in your career, and a lot of aspects in life at the moment. And I want to ask, what's your main way to just keep your motivation?
So motivation changed for me. Like when I was younger, it was all about proving a point that I can play because I always got rejected. I never got to get the accolades that I wanted. So me playing Western Province or playing Craven Week, I never got that opportunity. So when I got onto the field, there was a lot of anger. There was a lot of like, I'm going to show you guys, I'll prove a point. And that was my motivation. So I worked extremely hard to prove a point. And then eventually when I started making it, I kind of had that little bit of, now that was the fuel, that was the fire now that I partnered with me understanding that I'm built for this, that God, that's why I've always had this, you know. And I think then my motivation changed. And then you have kids. And now it becomes professional. So by the time you have a wife and kids, now rugby becomes almost a little bit more of a career. So you think about earning, salary, security, stability, investments, all of this kind of stuff, where before that, it wasn't that. So I would say purpose, family, understanding what it is that your responsibilities, that's the stuff that keeps me motivated. And then I've always had a drive to be excellent, to be the best. I think if you someone, whatever you want to do, you always have that burning feeling inside of you like you're not doing enough. You need to be better. You need to upskill yourself. You need to improve yourself. Like, and I still have that at 33 years old. And I think that's that feeling, that burning desire inside of you to always be better. I think that's the thing that motivates me. So when I wake up in the morning, like now, I've had a long day today. You know, I took a nap just before I came because I said I'd rather take that hour and sleep so I can be fresh coming here, have a Red Bull before the time, and then afterwards I need to go and run because I need to train. There's a certain amount of kilometers that I need to get in my week so that I'm fresh when I go, because I've been off for 3 weeks, but there's a program that I've been following, and today and tomorrow is running sessions for me that I have to do for me to be able to go and train next week, because next week it's a shock to your body. So you understand what I'm saying? Because I know what I need to do and I know what drives me, it becomes easy for me to make those decisions. So your motivation definitely changes in different phases of your life, but it starts similar to the thing I said just before. It starts with your purpose and then understanding and building those blocks from there and understanding why you do what you do. I think that's important.
Yeah. And then another question is, I know we already asked this, but on a more deeper level, many people also have supporters that will probably like drive for your rugby game until, let's say, from here to Pretoria, if I can say. So they will support you through everything. And I want to ask, did you have one of those supporters while pursuing your career?
That was definitely, and you're saying like drive from Cape Town to Pretoria. It's my father. He loved the open road. He always had the dream, Sam. He didn't get to live that, but I mean, he always had the dream of one day when he retires, he was going to get one of those, what do you call those caravan cars, bucket car thingies. He was going to get one of RVs, one of those RVs, and he was going to travel up in Africa and just park it wherever and just kind of camp out here and then go to. So he loved the open road, and so he didn't miss one of my debuts. So my debut at the Bulls, they were there. My debut at the Lions, they were there. My debut for the Springboks, they were there. Like every single major game in my life that I ever played, they were there. My son was born. They were in Joburg when my son was born, my firstborn. They were there. And then the next 2 weeks after that, we're playing in PE against Argentina. He drove up to PE. You know, like, you understand what I'm saying? So he always made sure, because he missed so many moments earlier in his career because he had to work so hard. He was a police officer. So shifts and all of that. He didn't always have the availability for him to be able to take leave to come. But when I started playing professional, I was older and a little bit like further on in my life. He booked the leave. He made sure that he was there because it was important to him. You know, like he knew that he wanted to live those memories. So for me, that was special. You know, so he was that one person that literally followed and was there for every one of those big moments. And I mean, I appreciate it till this day. So now when I'm watching my child practice and go to soccer and all of that kind of stuff, for me, that's like, I want to be there because I want to be more than what my father was for me. I want to be there for him as well. So it's a special opportunity. And I mean, he's the example for me. He's the example.
Yeah.
En ouers speel so groot rol in 'n mens se lewe.
Totaal en al.
Dink bietjie net, you said now, you play that when you see them next to the field, just standing there cheering for you.
100%.
Give it more than 100%.
100%.
You give it 110% because now you're not playing for yourself, you're playing for your family. You're playing for the people standing there for you.
You need to understand, I'm first generation doing this. So in my family, no one's played professional sports before. So it's an honor and a massive privilege for me to do that. So to have my father be my main backer, it's that's special. Special.
Aldo, ons het nog kans vir een vraag as jy wil vra vir hom.
And then,
Goeie vraag, 'n goeie vraag.
Hulle almal is
Nou
goed
laat
prepared.
stress.
Geen pressure. Dit is almal next level.
is maar so common vraag as ek so kan sê, amper, is enige encouraging words for children that do sports and want to pursue a career in sports?
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to say is I want everyone to have the dream, but understand that the dreams it comes with a lot of work and a little bit of luck and a lot of grace. So, when I say work hard, I say get into spaces where you can learn more than your peers, like where you can learn special abilities, tricks and stuff, like reach out to people. Nowadays, you guys have access to all the resources in the world, so use those resources, tap into it. You've got Instagram, you've got literally Brian Abena at your fingertips. If you a winger, you have Frans Malherbe at your fingertips. Reach out. Like if you persistent and you reach out enough times, I can guarantee you, people think we're untouchable, we're unreachable. It's so easy to get a hold of us, like if you persistent and then you go to the games and you're like, I'm the guy that DM'd you, or can I take a picture with you? But listen, I've got one question to ask you. Stuff like that, like we're willing to learn, willing to teach, like get into those spaces, but work extremely hard and believe in yourself. Find good people around you to teach you and support you. And like the world is in front of you. You literally don't have to stand back for anyone. Like you literally have a dream, go for it. I mean, I had the dream, and still after school, I was one of the crazy ones. So after school, I still said, this is my year. After being disappointed so many times, still said this is my year, because I knew I was doing the work. It just wasn't happening, but I still had the dream. And I think if I didn't play professional, I would have been 33 years old, still saying that this will be my year. And that's the type of mindset you need when you want to achieve, in anything, not just sport, in anything. You got to be crazy enough to believe that at any time it's going to happen, but you need to be ready. So when that opportunity came for me to go to the Bulls, I was top fit. I was conditioned without working with professional coaches or professional conditioning teams and stuff. They couldn't believe what they saw when I was doing testing and stuff. They couldn't believe it. They're like, how did you didn't have any of this coaching? You didn't I wasn't training at the institute and all these other guys with GPSs and metrics and all of that kind of stuff. I was just working extremely hard at zone fitness every day and at my club every day. You don't have an excuse. Whatever's at your disposal, use that. You just become better.
Sure, Courtnall, ek weet nou nie van jou nie, Aldo, maar ek het nou nogals, dit was nou baie insightful geweest, maar voordat ons nou die laaste gedeelte van ons gesprek met jou moet voer, met ons gou ons borge bedank.
100%.
So die eerste enetjie is Tafelberg Furnitures, that has been investing into the official podcast studio that we're going to launch one of these days. En dan het ons ook King Kaas waarvoor ons ook moet dankie sê, waarvoor daar 'n advertensie later gaan speel, maar net dankie vir al ons borge wat betrokke is en enige iemand wat nog sou wou betrokke raak in ons podcast.
Wink wink na Courtnall toe.
Ja, wink wink nudge nudge, jy weet. Raak betrokke, julle kan marketing at Brackenfell kontak om die nodige inligting te kry, en dan het ons 'n laaste paar vragies wat ons gou vir jou moet vra.
Ek wil net voordat ons nou uitkom by sy toekoms. Sorry, ek wag nou al vir die vraag en ek brand om.
No problem.
Ons praat oor die hele tyd oor rugby en alles, maar jy is 'n persoon wat iets ervaar het wat letterlik 'n handjievol mense kan ervaar. Soos toe jy jou debut by die Springbokke gemaak het en vir die eerste keer daai Springbok trui oor jou kop getrek het en in daai stadion die landslied sing. Kan jy vir ons beskryf wat se tipe gevoel is dit? Want mense, dit voel vir my dis soos iets wat iemand gaan ruimte toe. Dit is omtrent in dieselfde lyn vir my. So,
sure.
Hoe was daai gevoel?
Het voelt definitief soos dit. It's crazy. Okay, ek like om goed in context te sit. So, ons het die announcement, ek was nooit na kamp toe genooi nie, eerstens. So nooit na kamp toe genooi nie. Elke jaar is ek een van die top 5 top try scorers in Super Rugby. En jy dink ons nou, listen, performance translates to reward, like this. Maar die tyd was net reg geweest. So ek het obviously 2015 run gemis met World Cup, 2016 het ek uitgemis en dan 2017 'n great jaar gehad. Soos my seun was gebore. Ek meen ek het gescore, soos dit was crazy. Ons span het great gedoen. Ons het amper aanbied en ek dink ons is soos soos oor die 20 games unbeaten. Soos dit was soos 25 games of 26 games unbeaten against Suid-Afrikaanse oppositie tussen 3 jaar niks verloor het. So dit was 3 seasons wat niemand in Suid-Afrika's kon wen nie. En het was 'n crazy tyd en experience om deel te wees van so 'n span. En toe eventually kom die opportunity, ek word genooi na die finale kamp toe, voor hulle die squad aankondig. En werk met die coaches vir 2 dae en dan gaan jy weer. En niemand sê jy's in of jy's uit of niks. Hou dit nog, obviously hulle observe jou, hulle kyk hoe werk jy, hoe fit jy in en alles. En ek gaan toe vir treatment by die Unie en die announcement is 1 uur. En ek sê 5 voor 1 vir die physio, hoor jy, nou klaar maak nou, ek moet nou skiet. Ek kan nie hier so wees nie, want as ek nog 1 keer 'n lys moet sien met nie my naam op het nie, gaan ek breek. Dan sê ek vir hom, ek wil breek in my kar terwyl ek op pad is huis toe. Ek gaan nie voor die manne breek nie. Dus sê, want ek mean, like I said, every year my name is not on the list. So it was
and it gets to a point waar dit nou genoeg is.
You know, even after achieving and being part of a successful team, you feel like, okay, it should probably be happening. Like, what's going on? Like, God, like, you know. And ek klim in my kar en ek sê vir my vrou, hoorie, bel my as my naam op die lys is. As jy my 'n message stuur, dan weet ek my naam is op die lys. Gee my dan net kans om bietjie te huil en het uit te kry, verstaan. En as op die huis kom, kan ons nou so, we either meet at the restaurant for celebration of ons gaan saam moop, whatever the case may be. So sy het lunchbreak gevat en ek is op pad en ek is net om die draai weg van die stadium af en my foon lei. Yes, maar ek begin breek. Ek huil. Chunks soos 'n babietjie. I'm crying and finally, like all the emotions, all the stuff, like this story, all the stuff we're talking about, the hard work, the sacrifice, the support, people giving up their dreams for you to achieve and mense wat in jou lewe ingespreek het and you know, all of that stuff just comes all at once and it just overflows you like, en ek moes huil. Dit is die enigste woord om dit uit te kry, but it was tears of joy, but ek moes dit uitkry en it was amazing geweest en ons sit en ons eet lunch en ons, like, alles is net, and then like jersey weer 'n kop trek, like om die anthem te sing en te weet, hoor jy, this
is what you've been working.
60 miljoen mense.
This is what you've been working.
Op aandag in hulle voorkamer staan saam met jou en hulle is volle bors trots, sing, hulle gooi kole en dit is, en die funny ding is ek het my professional debut gemaak by die Bulle en my eerste game vir die Lions, Super Rugby debut op Loftus.
Oh goodness.
My Springbok debut op Loftus. You know,
That's
so Loftus
amazing.
became such a special place for me, you know, like, and it's just
Where it all
it's
started.
like, jy kan nie, ek my hart vir die Here gegee in Pretoria. Ek het my eerste professionele game daar gespeel. My Super Rugby debut daar gemaak en my Springbok debut daar gemaak. Ja, my vrou kon moet daar. So it's like, like alles is daar.
Jy moes daar gewees het.
So it's just special, like pulling that jersey over your head, it's just all the years, alles op een slag, maar jy probeer dit by mekaar hou sodat jy, want jy weet, die volgende 80 minute is oorlog. You know, you try and keep it together, but you have to shed a tear or two. I mean, you would have seen when Eben had the 128 game.
Yeah.
I kon nie help you have to. I mean, at 128 or at 1, it's almost a similar feeling because you're the first of how, you know, it's the first to achieve. Like it's like it's really special.
It's somewhat
special.
humbling as well.
100%.
Ja.
Is 'n massive, amper sê ek iets anders. Dis 'n massive voorreg. Dis regtig 'n massive voorreg.
Also daai uitgeëdit.
And like I said, you know, like for me in my family as well, it was special for me to be able to, it's an extra thank you. Vir my pa, vir al die sacrifices wat hy gemaak het. I mean, like paying university fees for a whole year and telling your son, listen, you can go and live your crazy dream when no one's done it before. It's like, it's a little bit unheard of, you know, like it's a bietjie, gaan het werk of gaan het nie werk? Yes, ek het nou al klaar al die hard gewerkte geld het ek nou opgeoffer al vir jou om te gaan swat en nou wil jy opskop en gaan en jou droom gaan leef wat
Jy moet nou iets daarmee maak en jy moet nou iets daarmee maak.
And then that was kind of the moment where you're like, okay, you know what, this is
pivoting moment in your life.
My try waar ek my eerste try ingeskoor het, dis hulle sinne. Dis nie myne nie, dis hulle try. Ek weet nie wat hulle daarmee maak of as hulle dit in vreemd is wat hulle doen nie. Dis ek het vir hulle gesê, hoor, dis julle en ek is baie sentimenteel oor my jerseys. My jerseys, ek is baie van jy werk so hard vir dit, vir elke game. Mense dink is nou 50, 60, 70 games. Elke van die 80 Super Rugby games, daar is bloed, sweat en alles wat in dit gaan net om my naweek te speel.
En baie gebed.
So it's special. It's really special.
Yes, ek kan net dink. So ons gaan nou gou-gou 'n bietjie afsluit nou amper met ons vragies, maar ons wil net vinnig weet wat in die toekoms is. Ek gaan hom oorgee aan juffrou van Biljon. Sy gaan ons laaste 3 vragies of 2tjies hang af hoeveel tyd sy het.
Ja, veel ons nou praat op hierdie vrae. Dit is wat hy sê. Yeah, so we just want to know what does the next few episodes for Skosan Unplugged look like?
Sure. Okay, so I've had JP Stale, I've had Jaco Kriel, amazing. If you guys haven't watched that one, do yourself a favor. He has a powerful testimony, like special guy. What he's gone through in his life is just, the grace of God has him where he is today. So as je nog nie gekeken het, doen yourself a guns. Episode number 3 just aired, what is today? Thursday, so it aired yesterday. So episode 3 is out now. The next one will be, I don't want to give the guest's name away, but
It's a good one.
It's amazing. It's regtig amazing. 'n Goeie mens, baie goeie mens waarmee ek sit. Great rugby speler, hy het die wêreld getravel. Like hy het 'n baie special story. 'n unieke ou, definitely 'n unieke ou. And then episode 5 similar as well. A guy that also is into different things when it comes to like being a rugby player, but special. And then episode 6 is a local businessman. That I've sat with. So I've kind of built like a backlog of episodes. So local businessman, professional poker player as well. So interesting. That'll be an interesting conversation, and that's why I went for that. And then so episode 7 and 8 as well, some special guests as well. Also in the rugby space, I'm trying to get people from different walks of life, not just, but obviously because the rugby connection is so strong, most of that will be rugby people. But they'll be in between. There'll be a mix of some interesting people as well. I've been talking to so many guys for the last few weeks. It's all about finding the time and like aligning your schedules and all of that. But it's baie exciting goed.
En dan dink ek is dit belangrik om ook te vra, hoe bly jy gemotiveerd? How do you stay motivated?
I think I started listening to a specific podcast called Simon Sinek, A Bit of Optimism. So I'd say topics that they discuss is insane. So ek dig bietjie daarin, want is obviously het help jou met leierskap en al die tipe goed. But how I stay motivated is literally just starting my day the right way. So begin in die oggend opstaan, lees my Bible, but some mornings it's a little bit more rushed than others, but then I listen to my worship in the car, but I make sure that I start my day the right way, because alles flow van daar af. En dan probeer jy maar elke stapie van die dag, probeer jy maar net die regte besluit te maak. Ek dink dis die main ding. And especially met my kinders, I know that I'm supposed to be an example for them. So the shouting and getting this and doing that, like I'm working on all those type of stuff to level out and balance myself quite well. So dat ek 'n voorbeeld vir hulle kan wees om te weet, okay, this is how you deal with stuff, like, en hulle kyk alles, hulle sien alles.
Ja, ons is 'n voorbeeld van
100%. So hulle, ek moet sê, hulle is groot motivation vir my.
Okay.
Yes, ek dink hierdie was 'n baie insiggewende episode, regtig. I think we learned more than we bargained for, to be honest. Like, I was coming in here thinking, well, he's going to be a rugby player. Jy so
net rugby praat.
Dit was so diep, en ek dink om eerlik te wees, jy het hom gemotiveer, maar ek as 'n groot mens nou al, ek voel ek is 130% meer gemotiveerd as terwyl ek nou hier gaan uitstap. So regtig baie dankie vir die amazing mens wat jy is. Die amazing beeld wat jy daarna buite vind. Dat jy nie bang is om jou geloof uit te streef nie. En dat jy weet waar jou krag vandaan kom. Ek dink dit is 'n baie groot een wat ons altyd moet in gedagte hou. So ek gaan hierdie episode afsluit. Ek wil sê dankie vir jou Aldo dat jy tyd uit jou eksamen gevat het om hier by ons te kom sit en bietjie met Courtnall te kom gesels. My mede-aanbieder altyd hier so op 'n plek saam met my vir van Biljon.
Natuurlik wel anders.
En dan natuurlik net gou vir ons klankmense en ons videomense wat ook net vir ons help, en dan natuurlik die ster vir vandag. Regtig baie dankie vir die eer om hier te wees, om 'n onderhoud met jou te voer, om te leer wie jy is, wat jy daar buite doen en net wat jy nog alles gaan bereik.
Ja,
en
dis 'n
daarvoor sê ek
voorreg.
vir jou baie
Ja,
dankie.
dis 'n voorreg.
En regtig met die podcast kan nie wag om episode 3 te luister nie. As jy sê hy het gister geëer, ek is dan nou episode agter, want ek het die eerste 2 gevolg.
Awesome.
Maar regtig bitter dankie vir wie jy is en vir daai lekker harde gesprekke wat jy nog gaan hê op jou podcast stelsel. Baie dankie hoor.
Ja, dankie.
En vir dit, totsiens Brackenfell.
Tot ziens.